Summer routines live or die by how easy they are. And honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Welcome back to Wooden Sticks. You are finding us today recording from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We are inching ever so close to the National Hockey League getting back together with training camp starting here in just a couple of weeks. I was out at the Minnesota State Fair with my daughters this week and had a chance to walk around the fairgrounds, including where the Wild are now located up on Machinery Hill, up near the hangar, which is a really cool place to hang out and take in some live music. Tip of the hat to my main man, Billy Johnson from Burnsville, who plays there on a regular basis. But you walk by the area the Wild have secured at the State Fair, they play back some of their off-season broadcasts. And part of those broadcasts are, include Bill Guerin. And so I was watching an interview with the general manager. I know he's on my list of things to do here between now and when camp gets started for our show, and I'm working on that as we speak. But it was fun to hear and see Billy. In fact, when I went over and did some radio on KFAN with Paul Allen, I took the first hour. Bill Guerin took a good chunk of the second hour, so our paths crossed. And between Aaron Sickman and Bill Guerin and having that brief conversation in between our two stints on the radio, it got that fire stoked a little bit more for the start of the hockey season. And it's exciting. It's a fun time of year to think about and to talk National Hockey League. And here on Wooden Sticks, we try to spread it all around when it comes to the type of guests we have. And today's guest is not like a lot of the guests we have, because we have a lot of people on that are at the end of their career, retired, well beyond their careers, 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70-year-olds. We had Lou Nanne on to start the whole process at the beginning of this journey, and he's that 80-year-old guy that still acts like he's 30, because he's just a complete machine when it comes to working the game of hockey and the game of life. Louis that guy. But today we're going to have on somebody more on the front end of their journey, and she's still done a bunch of stuff in broadcasting to get where she is. Her name is Katie Florio, and Katie will be the rinkside reporter and host for the Washington Capitals this year on the radio side. And she's worked with a couple of teams in the American Hockey League. And we have a mutual friend because Katie went to college at Clemson. And Devin Reagan, for the last 3 years, has just been crushing it on the digital side for the Minnesota Wild. And her and I have been travel buddies and been friends. And, Devin has moved on to cover golf. The Korn Ferry Tour gobbled her up. When you have that much talent, that's going to happen. I kind of feel the same way about Katie Florio. Katie has been working most recently in Colorado, in Loveland, with the Colorado Eagles, and did some work as well for Altitude with the Avalanche. And so in a game late in the regular season last year, we had a chance to connect. We were introduced years ago by Bob Woods, because her dad and Bob are lifelong friends. So we've got a ton of connections to work through. And once you hear Katie, you'll know why she's just such a lovable, talented, bright star rising in this business. I mean, she is just so engaging, and you'll feel her passion for what she's doing throughout our conversation today. And then we'll get a little window into some of the big stories that she might be covering, specifically around Alex Ovechkin, who's got a chance to be the all-time goal-scoring leader in the National Hockey League. It might happen this year. He's got, I think, 42 goals that he needs to net. And so I don't know if he'll get there. And again, at his age, will he stay healthy? And if he has to come back for another year beyond this year, is that something that's possible? I know he's motivated to do it. I know the Wild played the Caps middle of the year and towards the end of the year. So wouldn't that be a fun story if that ended up percolating throughout the journey this season with the Caps when they play the Wild in, I believe, late March. So it's going to be a fun conversation. We're going to hear about her journey. We're going to talk a little Clemson football. They've got a huge game this weekend with number one Georgia, and just Katie's awesome. Trust me when I say this, and I think you're going to enjoy where the conversation takes us today, and that'll happen here after a quick moment or two. Want to get to my friend John Schweitz. He's been a rock of support this last week. My dad has had some health issues. It's been very challenging. And John has worked for many, many years with the Minnesota Masonic Home in Bloomington. That might be an option for my dad, Kenny, here down the road. But I want to thank John and his crew for being sponsors of our show here on Wooden Sticks. And, you know, the Minnesota Masonic Cancer Center, the Children's Hospital at the U of M, those are just a few examples of some of the great work they do here in Minnesota. They're part of the largest fraternal organization in the world. And, you know, Masons have consistently answered that call when it comes to charitable needs. So, John Schweitz and the Minnesota Masonic Charities are a big part of this show. I'm so proud of that. And I want to thank them right now for their continued support throughout this year here on this new venture that is Wooden Sticks. And if you want to be a part of the show, Karen Clary is getting to the very end of her time. She is transitioning into, I believe, retirement. And our old friend Andrew Height, Whitey from the Minnesota Wild, will be taking over. So there's going to be some transition there, but still, Kate Cleary at talknorth.com. If you want to be a part of the show or have somebody that wants their business elevated, we are here to elevate, if nothing else. When we come back, a great conversation with Katie Florio, who now works for the Washington Capitals. Welcome back to Wooden Sticks. We are recording today from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Very excited, as I mentioned in my open, to have on one of my counterparts. She is Katie Florio. I got to connect with her in Denver last year, but she is off to our nation's capital to work with the Washington Capitals. Katie, welcome to Wooden Sticks.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be on. Like you mentioned, hockey's a small world, so it was great to finally connect with you at a game last year. And now I'm excited to be in the league full time myself. And hopefully, this means, the first of many times that we cross paths.
It's going to be fun, and I don't know how settled you are right now moving, and it's a big move when you go from Colorado to DC. Have you found a cool place, and what are your initial thoughts of living in DC?
Oh yes, very, very big change, that's for sure. I'm in the middle of all of it. Definitely bittersweet. I can't complain when I looked out my balcony in northern Colorado every day to the Rocky Mountains, and now it's back to that city urban life. But I'm excited. I'm from the East Coast originally. Parents live in South Carolina, brother in North Carolina. So to be back within driving distance of them is really exciting, and I know my parents will definitely catch a lot of Caps games this year. But yes, I'm in the middle of everything right now. I don't start until about the second week in September. So as we speak, all of my stuff is somewhere on a semi truck in the middle of the country, driving back to the East Coast. So I'm at home base, which is my parents' house right now, for about another week, and then we will drive up. I did find an apartment in Northern Virginia, kind of near our practice rink. So I'm excited. I've been to DC, but it's been a while. So now I'm really looking forward to diving into everything, and obviously not just with the sports, but the history that's there as well, and obviously a thriving city with people from all over and lots to do. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, it's a great walk-in city, and when you've worked the NHL beat like I have, this will be my 20th year with the Wild. We never rent a car because we're in and out of these towns in a day or two at the most, and so we really appreciate places like Washington D.C. because everything is walkable. All the great museums, the monuments, the Capitol, it's just all right there. Georgetown, it's all within a comfortable walk. The weather is usually pretty decent, so I think you're going to love those first few months of kind of settling in, especially that it's going to be fall on the East Coast. I mean, you're going to love just
Mhm.
walking around and checking all the sites out. It's going to be outstanding.
I'm excited. That's Yes, that's something that'll definitely be different, but that's me. I love the walking around, all the young people. I know it's a big, urban spot for finance and just a lot of young professionals, even some people I went to college with at Clemson University, which I know you said, well, we can dive into that later, but a big Clemson presence up there as well. Some people that I haven't talked to in 5, 6 years in the area. They were great giving recommendations and things like that. So overall, yes, I'm very excited. I think from an organizational standpoint and then just from a life standpoint and growing up on the East Coast, that this is a perfect team for me. And I'm just thrilled to get to work soon.
Well, like me, you're going to be a host and a reporter, and you're going to be on the radio network, which means you're going to be on every single night, even if the Caps are on national TV. On the television side, we get games kind of snapped away from us every year. In fact, the Wild, because we're the geography of the whole thing, we're in the middle of the country. We usually have 12 to 13 games taken by national TV. We don't like it. We want to work, and the more
Right.
games, the better. In radio, you're there every night. Do you like the host part of it, the reporter part of it? Which do you prefer, and which excites you with this new challenge?
That's a good question, and it's kind of a vague answer, but I'm the type of person I need to be doing something and kind of have my hand in a little bit of everything in order to not necessarily get bored, but I think when you have, multiple different roles and things like that, it keeps you from getting complacent, it keeps you from, getting comfortable. And so I've always loved that ringside reporter type aspect because I love being in the action. I love coming off an exciting second period and bam, you're right there to talk to the player, to get his thoughts at the intermission interview and things like that. But at the same time, hosting is really a great way to kind of set up the story and the storytelling component of it. And so, like you mentioned, I'll kind of be doing all of that. I'll host the pre and post game show, the intermission shows, but then another large component of the job is also hosting their podcast called Caps This Morning. And to my understanding so far, that's going to be more of just like this, more of sit down chats with players, coaches, staff, personnel, and really kind of get to know them. And so that's something that I love as well, just because, coming from a hockey family, you understand, I understand that at the end of the day, these are human beings too. And so I think from a fan perspective, sometimes, and as much as I love it, you can only talk about the stats and the statistics and the numbers so often before it can become a little repetitive. And so I'm really looking forward to having that good balance between hosting on game night, but then kind of putting my reporter hat back on and really getting to dive into the stories of the Capitals.
Very cool. Now you mentioned you're a Carolina girl. Let's go back because on Wooden Sticks we like to go, right back to the root of the whole thing, where it all started. As a little kid, what drew you to sports and then eventually hockey as part of your passion?
Oh yeah, well let's see. Do you have 6 hours? No, I'm kidding. I'll try to break this down as quickly and concisely as possible. So it all sounds cliche, but it really all starts with my dad. He was a former professional hockey player drafted by the LA Kings, I believe in 1985, well before I was born. And then he was playing in the East Coast League for the Johnstown Chiefs at the time I was born. And then through about my first 7 to 10 years of life, he was coaching mainly in the East Coast League. And so, again, sounds cliche, but hockey specifically is really all I knew. I think by the time I was 7, we'd lived in 5 or 6 different states in the East Coast because of his job, because of coaching. And, you have people my age at 5 years old, my friends in my kindergarten class going to bed at 8:30 and I'm still at the rink until 11 p.m. on a school night because that's all I ever know. And so it wasn't just, something like, oh, hockey is, that looks cool, I want to talk on TV. It really was a lifestyle. I was at the rink in morning with him, nighttime, my mom would take us to the games, things like that. And so it really was kind of in my blood. And then through his coaching career, we ended up, again, lots of different stops, kind of fast forward New York, Virginia, Pennsylvania. We get to South Carolina when I was about 8. He was coaching the PD Pride at the time. And that is where he ultimately got out of it. And so I like to say I'm from South Carolina because I went through all my schooling here. I think I started second grade here and went all the way. So kind of raised here. And so you get to the South and all of a sudden hockey isn't as prevalent anymore. So I still loved it. It was always in the back of my mind. We obviously watched it on TV pretty much every single night, but it also gave me a chance to kind of explore other sports here. And so, baseball, college football is like a religion down here. You have right in the thick of the ACC and the SEC. So that's what I did. I kind of, took a little break from hockey and sort of explored all my options. Ended up going to Clemson University. And while all of this is going on, I always knew that I wanted to work in sports one way or another. I loved public speaking. I loved, again, like I just mentioned, that storytelling aspect. So there wasn't really ever oh, what am I going to do? Maybe I'll explore the medical field. Maybe I'll explore this. Like I always knew I wanted to be a sports reporter one way or another, whether it was working for a local station or a team. I wanted to get my foot in the door. So I ended up going to Clemson University, had an amazing 3.5 years there. That was when they were at the height of college football, won the national championship my freshman and junior year, did a ton with baseball, basketball as well. And so kind of did everything but hockey. So after I graduated, I actually was in your neck of the woods for a year. My very first job was a post-grad internship with the Minnesota Twins radio network, lived with former Minnesota Wild assistant coach Bob Woods at the time. He and our family go way, way back. So him and his wife, Mary Sue, are like second parents to me. So once again, by this point, I'm working in baseball, but now I'm living with Bob. So I'm going to the Twins office by day, going to the Wild games at night. So back in hockey. So did a few years in pro baseball until I finally decided, you know what, I've kind of explored everything, but I do think hockey's my niche. I just feel the most home at it, the camaraderie, the people we know. I mean, as you know, it's so much more about what happens on the ice. It's such a tight-knit, small community, and I just always loved being a part of that. And so I was fortunate enough to kind of pivot from baseball to hockey about 4 years ago and worked with the Rockford Ice Hogs and the Colorado Eagles for the past few years in the AHL before I finally just got my chance full time with the Capitals. So again, that's kind of the very short version of how I've sort of gotten to where I am. But like I mentioned, I love all sports. Again, we just talked off camera. Super stoked that college football is back. My dad and I were just talking about, getting that back on the TV tonight and excited to dive into that. He's from Long Island, New York. So as I've been home the past 2 weeks, he has the Yankees on every single night, diehard Yankees fan. So we love it all. But hockey was just different in a sense of that's what I grew up around. It's truly in my blood. And I just feel like that's my passion. When I'm talking about hockey, it's not necessarily work per se. It's passion. And I'm absolutely, so thankful for every day that I get to go to the rink and do this as a job.
You mentioned Bob Woods, and that's how you and I met. He introduced us
Yes.
years ago when you were working on that Twins gig. And, Bob Woods is one of the coolest guys I've ever come in contact with in my time covering the league. We call him the Woods a cat. So what was it like living with Bobby and his family? It had to be fun.
Oh, it was amazing. And we just actually, my dad and I here, like I said, I'm at home right now. We just got off the phone with him. Bob is a wonderful man. And I know I mentioned with my dad, the Johnstown Chiefs, that was Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I was born there in 1997. And about 2 years before that, my dad got traded there. And he actually just retold me the story this week of when he gets there, he knew nothing about Johnstown, was like, where the heck am I at? And I think he and Bob at the time were two of the only single guys. So the GM or owner, whoever said, all right, you two are living together, go find a place. So he's like, okay. And it's funny because my dad is this like outspoken Italian New Yorker, and Bob, as you know, is just this Western Canadian, Saskatchewan born, mild mannered, so quiet. I mean, they couldn't be any more opposite personality, but they got along so well. And that's a friendship that, again, started by this point close to 35 years ago. Bob ended up being the best man at my parents' wedding. I then lived with them. And so it just goes back to how small the hockey world is. But oh, yeah, it was fun. I'm sure his wife, Mary Sue, and
Yes.
she is more like my dad. She is an Italian New Yorker. We always joke that if her and my dad married, they would have killed each other. But her and Bob are a perfect mix. So it was fun. They have two sons who are older than me, and again, they're kind of like older brothers. So that was, they kind of said I was their first daughter, second daughter. So it was fun to be with them, and Mary Sue was very happy to have a girl in the house. And like I mentioned, she and I were kind of, I think, at sometimes too chaotic for Bob. He's like, I'm going upstairs. You two sit down here and have girl talk. But as you know, he's a wonderful person. He has a wonderful family, and so it was so great that after all those years of, again, growing up with it, but I was so young at the time when my dad was still in it that I don't fully remember it. Then getting out of hockey for a while, but to come back, and I really think, I loved my time with the Twins and I loved baseball, but I do think that year with him in Minnesota was kind of a pivotal moment because, like I said, it sort of opened my eyes to not just the product on the ice, but how tight knit the camaraderie is in hockey. And I was fortunate enough to meet, all the coaches, Darby and Freddie and Dean at the time, and they just all welcomed me with open arms. And they'd have them over for dinner and stuff. So got to know them on a personal level, and they were all wonderful people, and it was just such a great group to be a part of.
I'm looking forward to seeing Bobby. He's back in the league, obviously working in Seattle with the Kraken. So we'll both get a chance to connect with him. And you're right, he's a sweetheart of a guy. And opposites attract. That's why him and your dad were buddies. That's why he and his wife are probably a good, match because I,
Yes.
I think the other way, if both are the same, it like you said, it gets to be too much. And he's just got that low key, chill personality.
He does, and you can tell that the players, I know specifically focused on the defenseman there in Minnesota, and again, just the little bit I was around it, you can tell how much people look up to him. He's a great coach, but even me, I think I was 21, 22 when I lived with him, and obviously I have my parents who are wonderful and so supportive, and they were in South Carolina at the time, so I was kind of just graduated, just sort of figuring my way in life, and as you know, this career path, this career field that we chose is not for the weak. There's a lot of sacrifice that comes with it, especially when you're first starting out and just trying to get your feet wet. And so I definitely went through some highs and lows there, and he was wonderful. Again, he'd never had a girl, so I didn't know how he would be. It's very, very different, as you know. I think you have three daughters, so parenting a girl as opposed to a boy is much, much different. But he was wonderful, and I still, like I said, call him up to this day, talk to him like he's an uncle or a second dad. And so we're very thankful to have them in our life. And as you mentioned, I'm so excited that with Seattle, you'll see him again, I'll see him again, and that's what I love about the hockey world.
Well, I think it's funny because I connect really well with women your age because I've got three daughters and my middle
Yes.
daughter is 27. So she's roughly your age. She's Devin
Hmm.
Reagan's age. And for those that don't know Devin, she was an outstanding, amazing um, digital content provider for the Minnesota Wild the last 3 years. She's moved on to cover the Corn Ferry Tour on the golf side, but we became really good friends. And I now follow Clemson football because of my friendship with Devin. I call her Devonsky. And,
Yes.
we have that connection to you as well because you mentioned Clemson. I know there's a huge game this weekend. They take on number one
Oh,
Georgia. Do you get
yes.
a chance to watch that game Saturday morning?
I do. I'm very, very excited for that. I'll still be home. Can't move into my apartment in DC yet. So that was number one when I came home. My mom and dad were already talking about that. We are very excited to watch it. With the way the hockey season lines up, I don't think I'll have a chance to make it back to Clemson this fall, but it's about 3 hours from my parents' house, and my mom loves to call Clemson her happy place. Again, my parents are from the Northeast, like I mentioned. My dad, Long Island, my mom, Pittsburgh. So she went to Pitt, so fellow ACC person. But I just feel like, again, college sports, specifically college football. I mean, we're in South Carolina. Our closest pro team big pro team, I guess, is not even in the state. It would be the Carolina Panthers in Charlotte. And so when we moved here, right away, neighbors, friends, whatever, ask, "Oh, well, are you Clemson or are you Carolina?" And we were like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" And they're like, "Oh, you have to choose one or the other." So we're like, "Okay." So we went to games at both places, University of South Carolina and Columbia, and then Clemson, and automatically just fell in love with the Clemson atmosphere and everything about it. And so I was lucky enough to get accepted there. I kind of knew right away, okay, well, this is where I want to go. It has a not just a great education, but obviously great athletic program to kind of do what I wanted to do as well. So, oh yes, we're thrilled that it's back. I was very, very grateful for the opportunities I got there. Again, when you're 19 years old covering a national championship on the sideline, that really, there's not many bigger moments than that. So to be thrown into the sports media world from such a large scale at such a young age, I really think that helped me kind of down the line with my career, no matter the sport that I was covering.
So take me through your college time game day routine. If you weren't working, if you were going to take in a Clemson football game as a fan, and you're 19, 20, whatever years old, and you're spending the day getting ready to watch the game and then going to the game, what was your game day routine?
Well, it's funny because I honestly don't even think I have just a student game day routine. I did not watch a game as a student in my 4 years there
You
until
were working the
my
whole time?
senior year. I was working the whole time. One
Oh,
thing I kind of like about Clemson is it almost challenged me. Like I said, I knew I wanted to be a sports reporter. I knew what I wanted to do. I thought that I needed to major in broadcast journalism to do what I wanted to do. And oddly enough, Clemson was the only school I was kind of looking at. I was mainly sticking southeast, Clemson, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and Clemson was the only one that did not have broadcast journalism. So I went on all my tours. Florida was great. Georgia was great. I mean, they were all good schools. But again, it kind of sounds cheesy to maybe someone that's unfamiliar with Clemson. But after that Clemson tour, I just knew in my gut, this is where I wanted to go. And so I knew it would be a little bit more of a challenge. You had places like Georgia and Florida with these beautiful student run television stations and just opportunities for freshmen to get their foot in the door right away, where that wasn't really the case at Clemson unless you made it your case. And so I remember right after applied, I didn't even get accepted yet. I just Googled the Clemson athletic directory and started emailing any and everyone in their athletic directory, introducing myself, saying I would hopefully be a student there in the fall. This is what I want to do. And I think I got one or two emails back. One from, his name is Don Munson. He's still there, director of broadcasting, does play by play for the Clemson football network. I was lucky enough for, he responded and he took a chance on this 18-year-old. And right away, my first week, freshman year, he brought me to Dabo Sweeney's press conference, and it was on a Tuesday. And I remember thinking, "Oh, thank you so much. This was great." And he was like, "No, no, no. Every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, you're going to meet me right here. We're going to go to Dabo's press conference, and then you're going to start slowly but surely start asking him questions and all critique questions and all that." And so we just grew from there. And so after a few months at his press conference, there was a website, the Clemson Insider, that kind of saw me just, keep, who's this girl, every week would come. And so they ended up hiring me as a part-time job. And from there, I was off and running. And so my game day routine actually started with Friday nights. I interned at a local news station in the Greenville Spartanburg area, and I would cover Clemson or high school football, excuse me, running around helping the sports director with shot sheets, getting all those things ready. I'd get back to my dorm in Clemson at like 1 a.m. and then I'd wake up at 8 a.m. for the Clemson game, get dressed, go to the field about 3 hours before kickoff, kind of get ready with my notes, things like that. And then I would work for the website. So I would provide in-game updates on their Twitter. Then afterwards, I would write articles. That was kind of a writing-based job to get me started. So that was honestly my routine. If you're not doing all of that, I highly suggest, as a normal fan, it's all about the tailgating there. There's one street, College Avenue, with a lot of good bars, and that's all fun and stuff too. But on a true Saturday morning, I mean, the fields there, the campuses are just filled with orange tent after tent after tent because those people sure know how to tailgate. So my parents love to come up for that. They have a group of friends that they tailgate with. So I tried to get that in. You got to be a student too. So I definitely think I maybe overworked myself a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think it all paid off to be where I am now. But it definitely was, an amazing atmosphere for tailgating and stuff like that as well.
And the team was great. So you had all
And the
kinds
team
of
was
great
great.
avenues, to lead you to the success you've had already as a, I would call you a really young broadcaster. You've been places and done things. One of those places, we talked about it at the start of our conversation, and we are talking with Katie Florio. You can find her on X at Katie Florio. I suggest you watch her
Mm-hmm.
reel. It is such a fun reel to watch, and I love that you have that right there for social media. But Colorado, where you got your start as far as
Yes.
professional hockey goes, with the Eagles in the American Hockey League. How did you land the job, and what throughout that process kind of allowed you to flourish? Because clearly you've come a long way from day one to where you are now, back in the National Hockey League.
Yes, definitely. Well, so I got to give a shout out to my very, very first stop in the professional hockey world was the Rockford Ice Hogs, the AHL
Yes.
affiliate of the Blackhawks, and I was there for 2 seasons. That was the job where I was in Pensacola, Florida, working in baseball. Loved the job, loved the city, the sunshine, the beach is right there, but that's kind of where in the back of my gut, I started getting that itch to get back in hockey. And so kind of started looking around, networking, and lo and behold, that's when I saw a job with the Ice Hogs as I think it was communications coordinator, but they were open for me doing more. So I kind of did it all, and I ended up getting that job and did it all in Rockford. And I at one point was doing communications and PR, also running social, had a small hand in community relations as well, and then really implemented the on-air stuff. They didn't really have that at that level there, but again, I'm thankful they were open to it. And so that's kind of where I started a pregame report. I would do intermission interviews with guys as soon as they came off the ice each period. Basically just, watch people on TV exactly like you, Kevin, and was like, that's what I want to do. So that's kind of, to the scale that I could. We obviously weren't on TV, but just for social media, that's where I started to implement as much as those things as I possibly could. And so that was great. That was a great foundation. And I was there for 2 years and it was good. And then that's where kind of unexpectedly Colorado reached out about a year and a half ago when they'd seen my work in Rockford and kind of said the same thing. There's AHL teams don't necessarily have ringside reporters because you don't have, the resources and stuff like that for it. But some teams are slowly starting to implement that position. And Colorado was one where they saw my work. They never had that position, but they were interested in maybe bringing it on. And so kind of after talks and things like that, I never expected to jump NHL team or AHL teams, but it seemed like a good fit, career wise, salary wise, things like that. It was a jump that I was willing to take. And so yes, I got to Colorado, and by this point I'd done 2 years on air in the AHL. And so for me it was all about, kind of goes back to I guess what I had to learn at Clemson about creating those opportunities for yourself. And so that's exactly what I tried to do. You run that fine line of being persistent but not annoying. And so in Colorado, I was also handling all of their digital and social media, kind of like Devin at you guys at the Wild. I was doing all the behind the scenes social, but anytime I could add something on air, that's what I wanted to do. And so we slowly but surely built up, feature stories, pregame reports, the intermission interviews, post game interviews. And so it was really exciting to not only do that, but again, to kind of be the first person in that organization to sort of implement that role. And so as the season went on, it obviously was doing very well. And logistically, we call it the hockey highway there. The Colorado Eagles are based in Loveland, Colorado, which is only about a 50-minute drive to Ball Arena down in Denver where the Avalanche are. And so luckily, because of the logistics and it being a close proximity to our, big brother, I was able to slowly but surely incorporate some NHL work as well. And so I'm really thankful for the people at the Avalanche and Altitude TV as well, who about mid-season kind of took notice and said, hey, this we should do, some prospect reports. We talk so much about the Avalanche, but if anyone's going to be an expert on the prospects, it's you, Katie. You're there watching every single night. So that's what I started to do. I started to go on Avalanche or two Avalanche games on Altitude TV pregame shows, and that's where I met you, Kevin. That was one of the nights the Avs were playing the
Yes.
Wild, where I was on. It was right before playoffs, so that's what they had me come on. We came on to talk about some Eagles players who we might see down the stretch in playoffs with the Avalanche, and so that was such good exposure for me because again, the AHL. I always say it's not just a development league for the players, but for staff and personnel as well. And so to just be in there every day, day in, day out, I obviously got the repetition, got the content that I needed. And like I said, you do so much in the minors. I'm going from making the silly TikToks one day to putting my reporter hat on and doing a serious interview the next day. And obviously the reporting aspect of it has always been the ultimate goal, and I'm lucky that that's where I've now gotten. But just able to, so thankful that I was able to wear so many hats and acquire so many skills in the AHL that Avs took notice, got a little bit of time. It was obviously part time, but got my time there. Really was able to develop and get comfortable on live air, having that producer in your ear, things like that. And so that all helped me to now land this full-time job with the Capitals. So yeah, really excited about everything.
So here we are. We're getting close to training camp. We've got, I don't know, a little over a month before the season starts for real. I think you guys open up against the Bruins on October 5th. And I'm looking at your roster, and, a lot of the familiar names and faces that we've come to know and watch with the Capitals. And we'll get to Ovechkin and TJ Oshie here momentarily. But I got to tell you, my good buddy Brandon Duhaime lands in Washington with the Capitals, and he got some real national buzz last year because of the prank war throughout the
Oh,
year
yes.
with the Hall of Famer that is Marc-Andre Fleury, and that carried over into Colorado because when the Wild were there late in the year, remember, he got moved at the deadline the day before the Wild were scheduled to play at Ball Arena against the Avalanche, and of course that whole epic back and forth between Duhaime and the Flower. But I got to tell you, that is a personality that I think you're a perfect match for because he gets it. He understands that we're here to entertain, and he's a fantastic kid.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to officially meeting him, obviously, through the connections with the Wild and Bob and you and Devin. I've seen him, and then him being traded at the end there to the Avalanche. I've seen him play in person so many times, and uh, I have heard, it's one thing for people to be talk about your play on ice and things like that, but yourself and then Devin as well. That's one of the first things she said to me was, "Oh my gosh, you are gonna love Duhaime.
Yes.
Not only is he going to do, whatever you ask from a media standpoint, but he's fun and he's entertaining with that." And I got to tell you, obviously have followed the Wild on social media for years just with all of our connections. And yes, if there was one thing that I'd see pop up on my Instagram feed, if it was the prank wars with him and Fleury, I was watching the whole video because that was just gold. And so then when he comes over to the Avs, I got to say, I think Marc Andre got the last laugh with what he did to his car in the Avalanche parking lot. I
Oof.
mean, that was absolutely amazing. But it's funny, I was just talking with John Walton, the play by play voice of the Capitals radio network, and we were just starting to brainstorm. Obviously, the Capitals made a lot of off-season moves this year that we are really excited for. I think it's going to, make for a better, faster, stronger, younger team. And, we can talk about all the hockey side of it another time. But that's one thing going back to the podcast that I'm going to host. John said, we got to maybe, with all these new faces, kind of feel out some guys that would be really good to do a large chunk of it. Who's our personality guys, things like that. And I'm excited because I think Duhane will be spot on for that. And so I've heard nothing but great things about him from so many people. And so I'm really fortunate that I now get the chance to work with him. And who knows, maybe he'll find a new target on his new team to keep the fun and keep the pranks going. But very excited to get to see and meet him and work with him very soon.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And speaking of really good dudes, you'll get to know TJ Oshie in your time with the Caps and remind him that I covered him back when he was still playing for Warroad in high school. I got to do his state tournament
Wow.
games back when he was a high school player. So we've done a bunch of stuff together, including during COVID. We did some looks back at North Dakota, Minnesota games in college. So remind TJ of our long term friendship. And then, of course, you get to watch Alex Ovechkin, and he's on the precipice of a goal scoring mark to go down in the history of National Hockey League lores as the best ever. And I'm going to preface this by saying anybody who knows me knows I'm a Crosby guy, and you can't be both. But I absolutely respect the Great Eight, and my opinion of him changed dramatically, Katie, right after the Capitals won their Stanley Cup. And
Hmm.
he was kind of the ringleader of all the fun and games with the cup, and just how happy he and the team seemed with that. I don't know, it was weeks, maybe months of celebration once they won the cup. So I think he's evolved, and to a player that I just respected the heck out of on the ice, to a guy off the ice I didn't really know very well, but because of that cup run, I think it changed. And you're maybe going to see history in your time in Washington. That's got to excite you tremendously.
Oh, absolutely. There's so many, good talking points and just excitement for the Capitals fans surrounding this year. Obviously, Ovechkin's goal chase being number one. It's also the 50th anniversary, so lots around that. But I'm thrilled as well. I haven't gotten the chance to meet him in person yet. Again, that's coming soon, but it kind of ties back into the small hockey world. Bob Woods was actually, I want to say it was 10, maybe 2011. At one point, I think Bob's first NHL team was the Washington Capitals. He was an assistant under Bruce Boudreau. Obviously, you guys in Minnesota know them very well there. And so it was the Winter Classic, the Penguins versus the Capitals. And my parents went out to dinner with Bob and Mary Sue. And I think Ovechkin walked into the same restaurant. And, he could have just said, "Hi, Bob," whatever, and sat down on with his dinner. But he came right over the table, chatted with Bob and Mary Sue. Bob obviously introduced him to my parents, and I think they ended up just sitting there together the rest of the night and having a few drinks and telling stories. And so it's exciting. He's the grade eight for a reason. So many people idolize him, and rightfully so. But at the end of the day, he's just a human being as well. And so I'm so excited to kind of, not just cover this exciting run that he hopefully goes on, 2 more years in his contract. We'll see if he can get it done in one. I think it's 42 goals to break, but nonetheless, it's going to be an exciting year in Washington. But just getting the chance to sit down with him and pick his brain, not just about the X's and O's on the ice, but through his career and everything that he's been through. I mean, I was little watching games where I didn't even know the first thing about the X's and O's of hockey, and bam, that's one of the first names that I saw on my TV. And so for me to now have the chance to, in about a month, sit down and cover him and do one-on-one interviews myself, that's definitely a pinch me moment for me as well. But yes, the few people that I do know who know him off the ice have nothing but great things to say about him. And again, just a brain that I'm sure you could sit down and pick forever with the stories and the experience and everything that's come in his career. So very, very lucky. And I don't forget how fortunate I am to cover someone like him, and hope that, this record can be broken soon, and we can celebrate down in Washington.
Yeah, I hope he gets off to a fast start. That'll be the key. Stay healthy, get off to a fast start. We see you guys in DC when the Wild come to town to ring in the new year, January the 2nd. I doubt he'll be sitting on 42 at that point, but you guys come to Minnesota late March, March 27th, so the tail end of the season. In
Hmm.
my broadcast dreams Flower gets the start. So it's Marc-Andre Fleury in goal. Ovechkin needs, let's just say one more goal to be the all-time goal leader in the history of the league. And Flower shuts him down that night, and we table that record for a date later in April. That would be spectacular fun and drama. But yeah, those are the 2 dates. January 2nd, we get to work together, and then March the 27th. Can't wait for that. You and me, Katie, we're going to rock the house as our host reporter
Yes.
skill set will be on display both in radio and TV. But now we've come to the end of the show, and it's time for the hat trick hot seat. 3 questions. We get to learn a little bit more about you away from the game of hockey. So are you ready for the hot seat?
Oh boy, I guess so. I don't have a choice. Let's hear it.
All right, we need total honesty. So money doesn't matter. You get to go out and live it up for one big meal, whether it's with your friends or your family. It's free. Where are you having the dinner? How fancy will it be? And what will be your order in said meal?
Well, I am, in case you couldn't tell, Florio, my last name, full blown Italian. I have had the chance to visit a few places in Europe. Just came off a trip to London earlier this year, but I hate to say that I am Italian, yet I have not been to Italy. That is the next country on the bucket list. And so I don't have a specific restaurant in mind, but I'm going somewhere on the coast of Italy, maybe overlooking the Amalfi Coast or something. And for about my entire life, someone asks me what my favorite meal is. It has always been chicken parm. I am a
Yes.
huge pasta lover. If I could have carbs for every meal, I could. Unfortunately, I can't, or the weight would start coming on. But I am just a sucker. At one point, my dad even dabbled, and I got to give him a shout out because he is an amazing chef. He does a little kind of catering side cooking business on the side solely because he loves it so much. And he's obviously full Italian, but he can make all kinds of things. But yes, you give me a good pasta meal with homemade. I did not know what jar sauce was until I went to college and had to start fending for myself and cooking myself, because that's about one of the only areas in life my parents spoiled me growing up, was about homemade quality meals every single night. And so Sunday nights in our house were always the pasta night. And so I definitely
Oh,
have to go chicken parmesan, the homemade pasta, the homemade sauce. Oh my gosh, my mouth's watering just thinking about it.
that's a great answer. And if you're Italian, you need to get there. So to get that done, you're young, you got a bunch of time in front of you. All right, so now we're going to move to concerts. And a lot of times on this show, I'll ask about first concerts, but I interview people that are a lot older than you. So it's a lot more fun to hear from a 50 or 60-year-old about someone they saw in the 70s. So I'll ask you this question, and I'll preface it by saying I've got a list of 4 or 5 that I'd have to pare it down to, but one of my all-time favorite concerts was taking my 3 girls to see Taylor Swift at the XL Energy Center. This
Aw.
is probably 15 years ago, so my youngest, Annika, was probably 6 or 7. It was spectacular. So far, at the ripe old age of 27, Katie, but you still must have one that stands out. Your all-time favorite concert you attended, who did you see? Where was it at?
So my answer might actually be a little different because it's my favorite not because of who I saw. It is at I was so lucky, and if I don't know if you've gotten a chance to do this yet, but anyone who is in Colorado, a bucket list item is seeing a
Oh,
concert at Red Rocks
yes.
Amphitheater. It
Oh,
doesn't matter who you see. And quick backstory behind this: this past it was May. I want to say it was May 1st. The Eagles had just gotten eliminated from playoffs. So as you know, that playoff time, you can't make plans. You can't make life plans, entertainment plans, because you don't know where life's taking you. You don't know if you're doing hockey all the way until mid-June or if you're out in the first round. And so lo and behold, unfortunately, the Eagles were eliminated in the first round this year. So I think it was April 30th or something. It might have been the very next day. My best friend in Colorado, who is a pilot, we have very, very different careers. She texted me. I was kind of at work, you're kind of somber. Season just ended. You don't know what to do with yourself for the next 3 to 4 months. And she's like, hey, Two Friends is playing at Red Rocks tonight. And I don't know if you've heard of Two Friends. When I texted my parents, hey, I'm going to Two Friends tonight. My dad, who I think is 57, was like, who the heck is Two Friends? They are a DJ group, and they take all the popular songs like on today's charts and things like that, and they turn them into like sort of dance house music remixes. And so, on a whim, about 2 hours before the concert, my best friend and I bought these Red Rock tickets to Two Friends, and we went very spur of the moment. And it, to this day, was one of my favorite nights in Colorado. Again, the venue itself makes it your favorite concert. It does not matter who you are seeing. You can kind of see the Denver skyline. If you're at the very top of the amphitheater, you can see the Denver skyline, but then
Oh,
you're surrounded by quite literally this beautiful red rock. And it is just, it's packed. It's amazing. It rained on us a little bit, which most people would be like, oh, that's miserable to be at a outdoor concert in the rain. But it just made the whole atmosphere even more fun. And again, with these two guys, this Two Friends group, they take all the songs. We knew all the songs, so it doesn't matter if it's a Taylor Swift. We're going from Taylor Swift songs to Bon Jovi songs. I mean, it
oh
is
wow.
absolutely, yeah, all over the place, and they're just taking them and kind of putting these fast, fun remixes on them. And so we literally danced the night away in one of the most amazing venues I have ever seen.
What a great answer, Katie. What a
Yes.
fantastic answer that was. I don't know how you're going to top it, but the third part of the hat trick comes from this question, and it's an all-time movie question. So I'll reference it by saying I've got some dear friends, Missy and Brian, that have a place up in Walker. So a couple weekends ago, snuck up there. Actually, it was a Monday because racing had just concluded for the week at Canterbury, and their youngest, Anna, is a little younger than you, so probably early to mid 20s, and she had three of her
Okay.
girlfriends up there, and it was a rainy day at the cabin on the lake in Walker. So what are you going to do? And of course, we're going to pop on a movie. So they know that I'm obsessed with movies. I go to 2 or 3 movies a week. It's ridiculous, but that's what I do. And so they looked for a recommendation, and so I went to one of my all-time favorites. If you like romantic comedies, the movie is called, and it's before your time, you've probably never seen it, Notting Hill. And Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts are the main two in this movie. Two of the 20 somethings had seen it and went crazy. Two had not seen it and were like, oh my God, we have to see it. So we got to sit down and watch a movie I've seen literally over 100 times and see these 20 somethings, soak it in. And, again, when you have a movie that was released in the late 90s, there are some things that are just so different now, but the
Hmm.
story's so good it doesn't matter. So I want a movie for you. And it can be a rom-com, it can be a scary movie. I don't care. But if you're stuck somewhere where you were going to be outside, but now you're inside, the weather has moved you indoors, and you're going to watch one of your all-time favorite movies, what's it going to be?
So you know what? It's funny. Final question. This might actually be where you stump me, and this might be where the only thing that you and I don't have in common, because I am the opposite of a movie person. I don't know what it is. I have never been in. I now TV show series I like. I don't know if it's I'm hyper or whatever, and I can't sit still through a whole 2 hour movie. But my friends will be like, "Oh, this movie. Have you seen this movie?" I'm like, "Nope." They're like, "Have you seen this?" I'm like, "Nope." They're like, what do you do? Live under a rock? But let me try to think. It has been
What's
that's
the
crazy.
last
You go
movie
to
you
two.
went to? Maybe we could just go there. If you haven't seen that
Oh
many
my
movies,
gosh,
what's the
I
last movie you
haven't.
saw in a theater?
You know what? This sounds horrible. I don't even think I've been to a theater since in like at least 5 years. So I really like it's maybe cheesy. I don't know. I really do. One movie I do remember seeing in theaters was The Blind Side.
Oh
Sandra
yeah.
Bullock. Have you seen that
Yes.
one?
Oh, I
Really,
love that
really
movie.
liked that one. Again, maybe that goes back to my southern. That I think that takes place in
Mhm.
Tennessee. They're big Ole Miss fans, things like that. So I think I liked that one as far as my college football roots. But no, I'm not. I just watched when I again now that I'm home with my parents. My mom and I just watched a cheesy rom com on Netflix together. What was that called? I don't even remember what.
Anyone but you.
Anyone but you. Yes.
When
So
you
funny
said
how I say.
cheesy rom-com, I saw that twice in the theater to give you further
Oh my
details of what a loser
goodness.
I am at age 57. But that
Twice.
movie, was so much fun. And again, I know, the critics out there are going to rip into this and rip into that. I love that dude, man. I love that Powell dude. In fact, I just saw
Yes,
Twisters.
Glenn Powell, I think.
He's
Yep, and Sydney
fantastic. And I
Sweeney.
get that he's eye
He
candy for
is.
you ladies, and that's all well and good. Doesn't bother me. I think he's fantastic. And so his most recent movie is at the tail end of its run in the theater right now. It's called Twisters. It's a takeoff on another 90s movie called Twister. And it's
Okay.
good fun. Again, it's just good. I call the movie you sat down with your mom and watched more of a popcorn movie, right? It's not a movie that critics are going to migrate to, but if you're looking for
Right.
90 minutes or maybe 2 hours to kill, throw some popcorn in the microwave and have a good time. That's the movie, right? It's total
That's
cheese.
exactly what it was.
Good fun though, and that's all we needed, and that completes the hat trick. And you're a rock star, so we're all good. And we've been yakking here for 45 minutes. It went by in a blink. Like you said, we could probably sit here, you and I, and carry this thing for 6 hours, but we won't do
absolutely.
that to the listeners because I don't think they want to come to a podcast for 6 hours. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I am so excited to watch you flourish. You are a rising star in this business.
Aww.
I've had this conversation with you before, but you have the it factor, and I can't wait to hear you shine and see where this whole journey takes you. And I think this is just another step along the way. So congrats on the new gig, and thank you for being a part of the show here today.
Well, thank you for having me. And like I said, thank you so much. I'll say real fast before we have to go back in Denver. When I introduced myself for the first time, you were in the middle of a game. You could have been like, hey, whatever, just kind of blown me off. But not only did you take the time to talk to me then, but obviously keep in touch. We connected on Twitter from there, and here we are now. So thank you to the good people like you in this business who pass along the wisdom, knowledge, things like that. And I really appreciate it, and now look forward to getting to work with you even more.
You're going places, kid. I'm telling you that right now. I've seen people that fit this job, and you are one that is just gonna crush it. So I'm really excited for you. I really am. It's going to be fun that we get to work a couple games a year together in the same rink, and who knows where this journey will lead to. But that is Katie Florio. You can find her on X at Katie Florio. She'll be working in the National Hockey League for the Washington Capitals. I will be back after a quick break to put a bow on this edition of Wooden Sticks on the Talk North Podcast Network. And we're back here on Wooden Sticks to put a bow on the show for another week. And as promised, Katie was just spectacular fun. I literally had a smile on my face from start to finish, and really needed that with the week that I've had with my dad. She is just a beacon, isn't she? She's fun, and she's going to do great work. I'm really excited to see where this journey takes her. She really does have the it factor. If you go to her social media profile, especially at X, at Katie Florio, and watch her reel, you can just feel the energy coming through in those videos. She is spectacular at what she does, and I think she's going places, and I'm really, really excited to see where her journey will take her, and looking forward to connecting a couple of times this season when the Wild take on her Washington Capitals. Looking forward to getting closer to the National Hockey League. We're going to have some fun guests lined up for you here in the coming weeks. Training camp starts in a little under 3 weeks for the Minnesota Wild, so we'll have some Wild content specifically as we get ready for that. If you have any recommendations or needs along the way, I am at Gorgomatic21 on X, at Gorgomatic21. Any requests you have, I will try to fill those needs here on the show, and we'll continue the great vibe as the fall turns to winter and we get real serious with our hockey here in Minnesota. Thanks again for listening to Wooden Sticks. Look forward to a great conversation again next week.